Hi folks, and welcome back to The Plot. It is a properly grey, miserable day and it's about to start chucking it down. But I'm really trying to get back into the swing of things, get back into making regular videos because I miss it so much. And we started last episode with what's in the car segment, and very similar today. We've got some cardboard. Main idea for this is sorting out the wood chip paths because wow, they are dire, and we've got lots more truggage. I'm hoping for a big harvest today because it's Sunday morning. I'm going to be down here for just a few hours. I want to pick up some bits, maybe sow some green manure as well. I'm probably going to forget to do that. So I was up here for just a little while yesterday on Saturday, and what I did is I walked up for the first time. Ever since tomato harvest season has been underway, basically 90% of the time I've driven to the allotment, because the first tomato harvest, I tried to go home with on a bike, and half the tomatoes got home completely squished. So it was really, really nice to just kind of walk up. It's something I've spoken about quite a lot, but one of my big things that I love about the allotment for me is just that because I work from home all the time, the allotment is just a little bit of nice exercise. It's about a 20-minute walk for me up here, so a nice 40-minute kind of round trip. It feels really, really good for me. It's just a nice bit of light exercise, and I've really, really missed it. Now, while I was up here yesterday, it was just nice to get kind of started on some more of the clearance work. So all of the outdoor tomatoes and cucumbers that were on here have gone, and most importantly, all of these completely blighted Roma tomatoes have been ripped up and composted. The most common thing that I get asked about blight is, whether or not I burn it or how I get rid of blighted material. But the important thing to know is that the blight fungus only lives on living tissue. So once something has decayed and died, blight can't kind of survive on it. So it's basically fine to chuck in your compost. The hot bin back here, I think one of my issues with this is that I've not got it on perfectly level ground. And I think actually what is happening is water is getting in when it rains, which is a bit tricky to control. And I'm coming up to the time where, can you see the steam coming off that? That is definitely cooking again, which is great. I'm going to close that, but that is now loaded with tomatoes and the latest grass clippings and all that kind of stuff. So it's good that it's going again. I think there's really only one or two more loads that are going to go in here, and then I'm probably just going to leave it for a little bit, and then it's going to be ready to kind of harvest the compost, maybe kind of December time, and then I'll make a choice about, depending on its consistency and quality, whether or not it's going to just get chucked onto a bed, maybe literally just there, that one certainly needs it, or whether or not I'll be saving it for potting and chilies and that kind of thing. And speaking of chilies, let's go and have a look. We could do with another mow already. I didn't get the strimmer out, so it's looking a little bit rough around the edges. The chilies yesterday, I must admit, were really looking very, very sad and neglected. I'd really missed a watering last week. I'm not quite sure how these things happen. Was away from the plot a lot longer than I realised, but everything has bounced back really nicely. Everything looking good today. Very pleased, very relieved to see that's the case. I always say that these chili peppers are very, very resilient to drought, but sometimes when they get really left for too long, they do look very, very dramatic. Look at the tomatoes coming up and over now. I'm really pleased with these actually. They look like they were properly on their way out when we had that mouldy spell. Really, really bad weather. But look up there as well. I spent a lot of time yesterday, as well as clearing outside, properly trimming these. There were so many side shoots that I'd missed kind of up the top. When you start to get up here to this height, very, very easy to miss them. And most of these I have taken out the growing tip, and so once you do that, they just go, okay, side shoot time. Let's go crazy, let's go bushy. So I was just trying to nip that in the bud a little bit. There's the rain just starting, and this cucumber looks like it's definitely had it. So I'm gonna spend a little bit of time harvesting. I'm gonna start outside before the rain gets much worse, and I'll show you the first lot. I think it's gonna be beetroot. I don't think there's any squash ready just yet. Goodness me, look at this. I am very, very pleasantly surprised by today's beetroot harvest. These looked just kind of rubbish when I first put them in the ground. You can see I've pulled out lots of weeds with these, a sign of the beds, but really, really nice. These are a mixture of kind of golden beetroot and, I don't know, these ones, they look more like turnips. I'm fairly confident they are beetroot, but I can't remember exactly what variety they are. I got really excited at one point because I saw that there was a label in the ground, but unfortunately the ink had washed right off it. So no idea which variety they were, but I've just seen something and it made my heart skip a beat. Very relieved. One of the things yesterday I did was a bit of tidying in this bed. I know it still looks pretty rough and ready, but I did a lot of weeding and pulled out a lot of bindweed that has started to creep into the bed already. I am getting quite excited thinking about the wintering jobs as well. Winter jobs. I want to turn this into 3 smaller beds instead of one just unmanageable bed. But what I saw, oh goodness me, look at this. Tiny bit of plastic, tiny bit of polytunnel plastic. And I actually gasped. I actually gasped out loud and turned to check the polytunnel. But thankfully everything is fine. This is just a bit of old plastic that I think was covered up when I was moving stuff around yesterday. It became uncovered. Very, very lucky. Very, very lucky indeed. I thought I'd quickly show you these beds. I got really looking quite nice last week. I did remember to put the Fort Fox back together, and you can see so far looks to have worked quite well, touch wood. Very important. Everything looking unmolested by the foxes, which is very nice, looking very tidy and very good. And you can see the level is starting to rise in this bed more so than this one, but this was just the first kind of early autumn application, and then a little bit later in the year I'll build this up a lot more. So I'm just going to get these tidied up quite quick, get all this stuff chopped off and then popped in that hot bin to get it even hotter. I find that beetroot is quite an interesting crop for me. It's, in previous years, something that has always grown relatively well for me. A real kind of low effort crop. You get the timing right, you don't leave it in your cells too long as a little seedling. You bung it out and it does its thing. And it does its thing very quickly normally. Sometimes you get a bit of leaf miner or something like that, but it's no big deal. But I've always struggled to find a proper use for beetroot. You know, you very quickly end up with a jar of it pickled in the fridge that we don't use too often. And quite often I find when I cook with it fresh, it's a bit overpowering, you know, that earthy taste, which is why this year I've done these more kind of what are meant to be softer varieties, you know, a little less of that earthiness. And I'm very excited to see how they turn out. But I must say, this in particular, like stripping carrots or beetroot of their kind of top growth, this kind of thing that you get from a root crop, I find really, really, really satisfying. Just one of those little allotment jobs. Oh, that one's seen better days. I'll show you a close-up of that. I think the slugs have had a good go on it. This is a lovely colour as well, this kind of reddy orange one. Okay, a couple of these have seen better days. I didn't realise when I was, wow, that is like, there's almost nothing left. This was the first year I've ever struggled with beetroot, and it was in the seedling stage. They just wouldn't really grow in the seed cells. And eventually I just kind of got bored of waiting for them to do anything and chucked them out in the ground, which to be honest felt a bit like giving up, but it was the right thing to do because look at this crop. Pretty happy with it. Okay, so I've been doing a bit of a chili pepper harvest in the greenhouse, and I thought it would be worth talking a little bit about the Thunder Mountain Longhorn. So let me pick you up and we'll go and have a little look at this very strange, slightly funky chili pepper. There is in fact one at the back of the polytunnel, and my strategy for the chili peppers this year has been fewer varieties and more plants of single varieties. So this is more of the experimental varieties actually, so not a very good example. But in here, for example, in the autopots, we've got 2 champion peppers, you know, things that I know that I love, I've grown more of. We've got a ring of fire here, I've got about 4 or 5 other ring of fire plants. Ooh, down here I have a California Wonder plant, and those leaves are looking very sad, and I'm wondering, is that underwatering or is that snappage? It looks like everything's attached there, so I might need to just get in there and have a little look at the autopot, make sure the valve and everything is working. But I did have a few experimental peppers that I've grown for the first time this year, and the Thunder Mountain Longhorn is one of them. Look at the size of this long pod. Now, this is a bit of a runt of a plant. It's just in a little 2.5 litre pot. It's right next to the door. It's fallen over about 50 times. But if you look down here, you can see loads and loads of shriveled up fruit, and it looks like this is just me being lazy. But what I found is a lot of this goes bad on the plant, and I thought maybe it was just because this is a bit of a runty plant, and that might be the case. But let me show you the one in the greenhouse. Running through the rain. Don't get the camera wet, JB. Okay, so in here, this is one of the chilies that I tried in the ground, and I put 3 in the ground in the polytunnel as well, actually, but they all just immediately died. Got really, really sad. I think maybe the ground hadn't warmed up. But this one has had exactly the same. If you look at look at that fatty. Can you see that? Get out of here. Attached to the chilies. But you can see it's a complete mess in here as well of vegetation. Hard to probably make out where the pepper starts, where the tomatoes are, and where the sweet potato is. There's also in here, look, a volunteer pepper that has somehow seeded. And it looks like it might be a poblano or a sweet pepper or something like that. So I've just left that, see what it's going to do. The sart relays that I had in the back here has fallen over. I sort of, I didn't enjoy the fruit of the sart relays that much, so I don't really care about it, it's fine. Don't worry about it. But yes, interesting that this chili pepper has done very similar. Lots of very sad fruit, but now later in the season, we're just starting to get the first healthy looking fruit coming through, like an actual good size, and it's not shriveling up and going all miserable and mank. So I'm hoping this might still give us a little harvest. The pods are incredible. Look at the size of that. Let's give one a little taste. Now, I am expecting this has like a bit of a cayenne flavour profile. So I'm expecting a bit of heat, kind of 30,000 Scoville, but lots of sweetness and a real kind of smoky deliciousness. I'll probably put this into my main kind of Louisiana sauces with my Ring of Fire. But let's taste it first and see if that's gonna work. Oh, I've just brushed my teeth. Hard to get an accurate impression. Oh, it's got that kind of, straight up front. Some peppers have a very dry heat. They feel like they're sucking all the moisture out of your mouth, and your mouth suddenly turns into this arid desert. A little hotter than I was expecting, especially right at the end there. I don't think that one's quite ripe. I think this one's a little funky. This one, on the other hand, a much deeper red. Let's try this again. I talk about this all the time, the importance of making sure your chili peppers have gone properly ripe. It's giving bland. It's giving bland, dry heat. No, that's not a winner for me. Oh, get a little bit more flavour as you go up. It's got the smoke. It's got that nice smokiness, but none of the sweetness, which is quite interesting. I think this would probably work okay with the Ring of Fire in the sauce, but it's not impressive. But as I've said, 2 very kind of runty plants, so probably not the best examples. Let me know if you've ever tried Thunder Mountain Longhorn and what you think of the flavour. Surprisingly warm in here today, but chili pepper harvests are beginning. This is probably the second proper harvest. We've got the first proper, actually good bell pepper. There's a little darkness on here, but I think that's just the California Wonder variety seems to do that. It's got this kind of darkness, and it's hard to tell if it's ripe, but better to take them rather than let them go gross, like I was showing in the last video. We've got the first jalapeno harvest. Now, I don't normally take these green, but I've done this for a similar reason. I just want to get these off the plant and have a harvest. And I'm hoping today I can make a little bit of cowboy candy, which I've never done before. We've got the first of the chili chump jigsaws. Absolutely terrifying looking specimen. Should we have a taste? No, let's not. They maybe could do with just a little bit longer on the plant. There's a little bit of paleness creeping in, but absolutely gorgeous. And as well as that, we've got all the usual suspects, loads of Ring of Fire. I'm hoping, oh, that one's got a little bit of sunburn. I'm hoping we're gonna get the first fermenting sauce on the go today. We've got a few of the pepper dews, but the pepper dews haven't been particularly prolific, which is a shame because I really wanted to pickle these, which apparently are amazing. pickled pepper dew, but alas, they've been coming in little dribs and drabs, and for pickling, you kind of want one nice big harvest at once. So pretty pleased. Tomato time. Well folks, you can hear the rain has come in and I'm smiling so much. This is what allotments are all about. I love it when it's absolutely chucking it down outside, but you've got some nice safe cover. The rain. And look at this. 1, 2, 3 loads of harvests. The tomatoes looking pretty good. There are still plenty on the plants, and I don't want to take too many that aren't quite ripe and try and ripen them at home. Up this end, we've got a few trusses where I have just cut them off, and there's a bit of a mix of ripe and unripe, but generally it is still my MO to kind of make sure that everything I harvest, chilies and tomatoes especially, are ripe, with the exception of something like a jalapeno, which you can use green. Now, the reason that I do that is because I make a lot of like produce and preserves, and I find generally it only takes a few kind of unripe things to really offset the whole balance, especially with chili peppers. If you're making a nice red sauce and like 10% of the chilies are a little bit green, they've got that slight vegetal taste, your whole sauce can just come out tasting like grass. You have to be really, really careful. And up here, look at this. We've got a little courgette as well. I think this is my 3rd courgette of the year. A few more cucumbers and all of these lovely beetroot. And there is still loads and loads on the plants to harvest, especially for my chilies. But even with my tomatoes, we've got a real downturn in the weather. Well, literally, as you can hear right now. So I'm not sure how much more ripening we're gonna get, but I'm being optimistic. You know, we've still got plants flowering, especially at the top of the polytunnel, loads of new trusses coming all the way up here, loads and loads. And you can see, still plenty on the plants in some places. So this is a good example. These just aren't quite ripe. So I've just left them because we're gonna be doing a lot of sourcing today, and I don't wanna take them home and have them hanging around with 50 different batches of tomatoes at different stages of ripeness. There are some that are being really slow. These black strawberry just don't seem to want to ripen. There's a few at the top that are kind of ready, but most of these still all across the plant, very, very firm to the touch. But we've got loads at home as well from my recent harvest, so lots and lots to make up today. Really, really pleased. As always, thank you so much for joining me today. Hopefully I'll see you again next time. An extra special thank you to all of my Chili Pepper Tier patrons who I've had to redo because I was really, really out of date. So Tony, Bill, Pam, Mel, Michael, Socks, Angela, Dorcasaur, Louise, Andre and Brett, thank you ever so much. My list was so out of date and I was just doing it from memory. So I'll have to get that re-ingrained. Hopefully I'll see you again next time.